Morning all. Would you like to join me making wedding flowers for a winter wedding? Come along for the ride. I've got wedding flowers, my usual commissions for other people, a little party and quite a lot to do. And my dog is out there barking. Anyway, you might like to come along. So you're very welcome. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. Press the bell icon and I'll tell you when I've got more clips coming up. And if any of the tips and tricks I give you along the way are useful, you can always buy me a coffee, or better still, join my club. The links for coffee buying and club membership are in the blurb to all my clips. Frog in my throat. Come on, let's go. So we've got lots to do. Busy Thursday, Friday, Saturday coming up. I've got wreaths to make still, working my way through the wreath orders. Masses of material to cut to go with the wreath orders. So one part of my head is full of that. One part of my head is full of a DIY event and another small event that I'm doing. So I've got to get them done and out of the way. And then I've got this lovely wedding, and it's a classic. This is the kind of wedding I absolutely love. The bride and groom are having some mixed buckets so they can arrange bud vases down the tables of the ballroom at North Cadbury Court. North Cadbury Court is the most lovely venue, and I'll put the link in the blurb so you can look it up. It's a really stunning, enormous Somerset house. Georgian on one side, Elizabethan on the other. I mean, it's just breathtaking. And I think it sleeps 70 if you want. It's really a brilliant place to hire for a wedding or event. So do have a look if you're interested. And it's not London money. That's the thing. Where we are in Somerset, people come from all around the country to be married here because we don't charge if you had the same house anywhere from Reading towards London, it would cost 3 or 4 times as much. So round here, weddings are good value. So these people are coming from London, and they're going to have their lovely wedding at North Cadbury Court. And I'm doing the bride, the bridesmaids, the buttonholes, and a few larger arrangements. And I hope you'd be interested to see how they work. I'm doing a big Constance Spry style vase for the mantelpiece in the ballroom, exploding an explosion of flowers and foliage to fill that space, and 2 enormous buckets. You know, buckets for a wedding, buckets. Yes, buckets. 2 galvanised buckets, which are going to be pedestals for the ceremony and then be moved into the court for the reception. So that's some nice arrangements to make. Anyway, I hope you'll enjoy and come along with me. I better get going. I promised the first pickup ready for 9 and it's 7:20 and I haven't done it yet. Right, there's the first job. These are DIY posies for a dinner. 3 each of 5 ingredients. Brachyglotis, Cerinthe major purpurescens, these lovely anemones which will come out in the warm, scented paper white narcissi, and budded willow. Dinky little posies, and my client's going to do them herself. Perfect, job done. Now, you'll have to forgive the state of my studio. We are very much on the last push of doing the new studio up the field, so it's extremely untidy. And we're wreathing, and look, all the boxes from yesterday's deliveries and so on. Load of stuff going up to London, all the dried is going up to London. It's just, we're on the cusp of having a clear out, but not quite there. So, anybody who thinks that the British flowers season finishes with mine in September, think again. We have, up from Cornwall, glorious, look at those colours, glorious chrysanthemums. The pop of these when they come out, these anemones, will be amazing. Lovely button feverfew, Hesperantha, which used to be called Cafe Lily. But as with many things, changes its name. Gorgeous white narcissi. And moving on round, there's my foliage that I cut the other day. beautiful, rich. Look at the colour of those snapdragons. The colour of this wedding is jewel colours. Lovely red berries. For a nice base, we've got some gorgeous British grown sea holly. And then I've got the bits that I've cut myself. So I've got, and I'm going to keep cutting today. What you do is you cut, and as the material goes out and I've got more room, I can cut more. But this Nicandra is going to be very good in the big pedestals. The pink is going to be used up in a minute for #1 Bruton. I will be cutting more of the Brachioglottis and the Cerinthe. Anyway, as you can see, the British flower season does not finish at the end of September. It just finishes with me, because I'm allowed to choose how long my season goes on for. Right, I'm now going to do, and I mustn't forget, for detail, for the wedding, you're always looking for detail. Of course, crab apples. Aren't they very dinky? If I put my hand behind, it'll focus. Nice. Imagine them in the buttonholes. Gorgeous. So next job, my weekly design for #1 Bruton, and we'll get that out of here. The skill is to get things out to make space. Right, that's #1 Bruton done. Lovely mix of dried and fresh, all from the garden. And there they are in place. Very good with the pink wall. Right, so it's one of those days when you dip in and out of jobs because you're spreading your material around to make it work. I've got plenty of material, but I need to make sure that the balance is right for each job as I go. Anyway, so I've done the buckets now for the bride and groom to pick up tomorrow. And these are this is material that's going to go in bud vases down the tables. And next I'm going to do the event, which is being delivered this afternoon. So, and then I'll do the bride and the bride's backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards. And so the bride and groom are having 4 mixed buckets, some grown by me, some grown by my colleagues in Cornwall. There's going to be a big frost at the end of this week, so I've cut them, and the colours are jewel. So for detail, look at this lovely salvia, which originally, in fact, this very plant, of which, no, this is not the plant, but I've taken cuttings from a plant, which was originally bought for an event at North Cadbury Court 2 or 3 years ago with the amazing Wonky Hills of Zest events. So, you know, things go on and on. So these are the mixed buckets to go into bud vases, and I've cut the Salvia Amistad for the same reason. We're going to have this hard frost, and look at that colour. It's going to be very glorious. So nice mix of flowers and some crab apples to go in the buckets. Also anemones beginning to pop here, and for scent, the lovely paperwhite narcissi. I love how these flowers have come out. More twiggery pokery, more wild sorrel seed heads. So willow, wild sorrel, and the leaves are field maple. Lovely autumnal mix. There we are, all autumnal poses, all done to go with the taller arrangements. That's one nice little event finished. Sweet, you see? Gorgeous colour, chrysanths. Nice detail. Berries, twigs, seed heads, scent. It's all there. November. Allora, it is Friday morning and I'm going to start doing my wedding flowers. Now, I always lay out my vessels first so that I know what I'm going to keep filling until they're finished. This is not an enormous wedding. I've delivered 4 buckets of flowers to the venue, and the bride and her family and friends and the groom and whoever's there are going to make posies for the tables with that mix. And I have to make 1 bride's bouquet, 5 bridesmaids posies, 8 buttonholes, 1 large arrangement for the mantelpiece in the ballroom at North Cadbury Court, and 2 big I can hear you going, but those are galvanised buckets with upside down hanging basket frames on top. That's true. And these are going to be pedestals in the church, and then they're going to be taken into the house afterwards to be used opportunistically around the place to be lovely arrangements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, because I always think I have to kind of loosen up before I start doing the important floristry. So I'm going to start by greening up the big arrangements, but I'm not going to then finish them. I'm just going to kind of physically loosen myself up by getting the greening up done. And that does another job in that it gets a load of material out of the way, so I can clear buckets. I've got very little room in here because I've been wreathing. And so this studio is full of, and because we're moving up the field into the new studio. So this studio currently is full of dahlia tubers that need putting away and haven't been yet. A huge heap of willow for wreathing, quite a lot of made willow wreaths, as usual the family bicycle collection, and the material for this wedding. So it's sort of a bit of a head explosion. So I'm going to work quite systematically to get things out of the way, as well as loosen up as I go. Here's a very, very top health and safety tip. Never pick a glass vase up one-handed. Always use two hands, because sometimes they snap off in your hand and then you have smashed glass all over the floor, a lot of water and a lot of mess, and it's stress-inducing. So always pick up vessels with two hands. You're welcome. Now I've laid out my two big pedestals and my vase as far away from each other as I can. And I'm going to green them up, which means I'm going to just put all the foliage I'm going to use for them in first. So I'm going to fill them up with foliage, and then I'm going to leave them there. I will be fit and feeling loose, so I will then use the very best of the flowers and the rest of the material I've got to make the bride, the bridesmaids and the buttonholes. And then I will put the flowers into these arrangements. The point of these is kind of size and wow factor, whereas the bride's bouquet is smaller and more perfect. Well, it's not more perfect, it's differently perfect. But it's good to get the foliage in here, and then I'll sort of shrink the creativity, fine motion skills, and then they'll be done and I can finish off. Anyway, I'll show you when I've greened them up. Right, they've got their kind of base. So I've done the bases, and now I can leave them. I'm feeling like I've done some exercise. So I'm going to leave them, and I'm going to make the bride's bouquet, the bridesmaids, the buttonholes, and then I'm going to come back and finish them off. But I've made a really nice, though I say it myself, I have to say, I think with foliage, if you're doing big arrangements, if you can make an arrangement with foliage that would stand happily on its own before you add any flowers, then you're winning, because foliage is so fundamental. And I would happily leave these as they are. I love them. I'll give you a close-up. But once you've made a really strong foliage base, then the flowers are what they should be, which is highlights. If you look at a garden outside, a garden is not a mass of flowers, unless you're municipal planting in a roundabout. It is usually much more about structure and shape and texture, which nearly always, mostly, comes from the shrubs and the trees and possibly a bit of hard landscaping. So in this case, the hard landscaping is the vase and the bucket. And we've got all this wonderful foliage to give a really good base. And I'm going to add, obviously I'm going to add flowers, it's a wedding, but I think it's quite fun to make this kind of thing with no flowers and challenge yourself to make a sufficiently good base that you could just walk away. And I think, anyway, I'll show you a close-up. Here's the pedestal that will go on the mantelpiece in the ballroom. And then, and I have to say, I think the Viburnum opulus foliage is fantastic. It's shedding a bit, so it may all fall off on the way, but if it stays, it'll be really lovely. So a little bit of light foliage, and then the same with the big pedestals, which are going to look lovely on stands either side of the chancel steps. They would, you see what I mean? They could hold themselves, they hold very nicely on their own. They don't need masses of flowers. I will give them masses of flowers, but they don't need them. And this one is for the other side. And I have to say, everybody, I thought actually a bit more foliage in the middle, so I've done it. And now I'm going to do the bride and the bridesmaids. Now, it's November, but they've got to look weddingy. They've got to look autumnal, not Christmassy, and have some light freshness to them. So one of the things, tea cake, what are you chewing? One of the things I'm going to give them is a little bit of dried material, because the dried material gives you, it's like a little sparkle in the mix, I think. And I'm going to give length with a little bit of blue. I've got some lovely Chinese forget-me-nots, which I cut in the garden this week. There's going to be a big frost tonight, so I cut all of this stuff earlier this week before the frost came. So I'm going to make the bride's bouquet, and I'll show you what I've done. I'm not going for size or show. I'm going for precious and something that the bride, it's nerve-wracking getting married. So the bride wants something really lovely to look at in that kind of, you know, that walking down the aisle bit. Anyway, I'll make it and I'll show you when I've done it. So what you want is a mirror. I haven't got a mirror. Everything is being moved around because we're moving up the field, but a camera turned to face one is very helpful. Obviously the compost is very full. Jewel colours. I love the little tiny crab apples are good, aren't they? Tiny bit of blue from the forget-me-nots. Little Hesperantha lilies. Little bit of silver. I think I'm nearly done. Nearly done. Nearly done. There's our bride. Once the bride is done, then everything, then is a kind of, you know, quite quick after that. But the bride always takes a little, shall I, shan't I? Is it, isn't it? How does it fall? Which way up is she going to carry it? Does it matter? All of that stuff. Anyway, I will keep going and I'll show you when I've done it. There. So there's my November bride. She's got a little bit of foliage. If it sheds, it doesn't matter. I've given it a good shake, so hopefully it won't. Anything that's going to shed hopefully has shedded. It's got scent from rosemary and scented pelargonium foliage. And in the end, I didn't put any dried material in. I kind of made it, and the dried didn't sing as I thought it was going to. So it hasn't gone in. There you are. Oh, even if I say so myself, I've seen worse. I would happily carry that. I was married on the 6th of November. And so my bouquet was very hedgerowy. My mother made it for me. It was very out of the garden. It didn't look quite like this, but it was, you know, there was, I love this. Look at the berries bouncing around. Oh, yes. Oh, well, we'll put that to have a drink and make the bridesmaids' posies, which are sort of, you know, similar but smaller. And here's a bridesmaid, same idea but smaller. It's slightly frustrating because they're full of anemones, which will come out in the warm. So when I deliver them tomorrow to the court, which is very warm and lovely, they will pop, 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 pop in the warm. But for the moment, they're little jewels in bud, hiding their little faces. The bridesmaids are wearing a kind of Merlot colour, so we're reflecting that in this rich velvety snap. Anyway, I love the little blue. I think it's very pretty. Anyway, there we go. On we go. Lovely colours. Cute. So that's the bride and the bridesmaids done. I'm really very much enjoying the bride. Now for the buttonholes. And what I'm doing is, as I finish up, so I'm not putting these forget-me-nots in the buttonholes, and I've only got 3 stems, so I'm just going to put them, so I'm beginning to put flowers in my big arrangements, you know, one at a time. Very dinky little bit of blue in there, don't you think? Love it. Ooh, yeah. You won't really see it when it's all, you know, the big story is done. You won't go, oh, look, there are blue flowers. But it's as though I've just got little dots of blue in there that lift what otherwise can be quite a gloomy, I don't want gloom, I want it autumnal but not gloomy. And that pale blue is really sky blue. So what are they called? Butterfly. Buttonholes. The buttonholes are sea holly, crab apples, one really very good colour, especially if you're wearing a Merlot, your bridesmaid's wearing Merlot, chrysanthemum, and a sprig of rosemary and some brachioglottis. I think they're very good. They're very good. I'm happy with those. I'm not going to do them all the same. So some of them will have different coloured leaves, so we keep that autumnal feel going on. I'm keen on not mucking around, but, you know, changing things around. So now that the buttonholes, the bridesmaids and the bride are all done, I can literally use up the rest of the material in the big arrangements. I don't have to count, I can just use it up as I go. So ready, steady, let's flower them up. I would happily leave them like that, but I do appreciate that people want real wow factor. So let's wow factor them. Right, they're pretty much done. There are quite a lot of anemones in here, which will pop in the warmth. I happen to know that North Cadbury Court is boiling hot. And so the anemones will pop, like there's one, and there'll be a little pop of hot pink, for example. But they're pretty much done, and I will install them tomorrow and show you what it looks like when they're there. Now, this happens sometimes. It's dark now, and the light is very different. And so I thought they looked a bit gloomy. So I had ordered some of these white button feverfew, tanacetum. And during the day, I thought I didn't need them and they were kind of too much. But actually, now it's dark, I think they really do a little sparkle. And so I'm glad I've used them. I'm glad I got them. Right, so here we are in the lovely old village of North Cadbury. And here is the court, and look what a fabulous wedding venue. I have to say, they are the nicest people, and it's a very grand kind of manor house, but it's also, until very recently, it was a family house. So it's got a real family feel about it. There's the lich gate for the church. We'll be going in there in a minute. But we're going to drop the flowers off to the house first. Look at that. You can stay, so the old stables have all been turned into holiday cottages, and you can stay there. And we're driving up to the main house. Look at that. Isn't that amazing? Right, I'll show you when we get inside, when I put the flowers on in the ballroom. I love this. This is the housekeeping room. This is a lovely old English house. It has everything. And it's the perfect place to leave the flowers. So here we are in the ballroom, and the light is falling very hard on it, but there's my big piece for the ballroom. And if we step back, you'll see that the bride and her family and friends have made these gorgeous posies for the tables with the mixed buckets that we did. I just think they're so fresh. It's kind of almost springy. It's such an easy, simple idea. It's a really good way to do your wedding flowers, is to ask to get yourself some nice mixed buckets and make your own posies for the tables. The light is terrible because it's so sharp outside, but you get the big idea. And this is the ballroom, and it's got this incredible park. And in the distance there, that hill, that's Cadbury Castle, where, oh no, wait a minute, is that hill? That's Cadbury Castle, where King Arthur may have had his castle. So they're going to have their dinner in here, and this is the North Hall, where you can have your ceremony if you want. Quite often people have, if you look at Fleur Provocateur, who's one of my colleagues in this area, she often dresses the staircase with enormous amounts of flowers, and the bride makes a grand entrance. But this is an Elizabethan hall. It's amazing, isn't it? Beautiful. Just stunning. So here's the front door of the house, and imagine, if you will, you get married in the church there, and you walk back from the church there. Isn't that amazing? So we're going to put the pedestals in now. And this is the church at North Cadbury. And you can see how the colours that the bride has chosen are so good, with the kind of Gothic stone colours of the church. I think I love it. And the light works really well. And there you have 2 galvanised buckets. Now, I'm always talking to people about how good a galv bucket is full of flowers, and I hope this shows you why. It's really important to not be too grand about your ideas of vessels. These blend perfectly with the stone, and you don't look at them and think there's a bucket. You look at them and think, I hope. You look and think, wow, the flowers are so great with the stone. Everything blends in really, really nicely. Well, and there you have it. So you don't need a whole church full of flowers. Just frame the couple as they get married. Allow the church to be really, you know, wherever the venue is, there'll be something for the ceremony that is lovely about the place. You don't need to spend a merry fortune. You can have 2 really good pieces like they've got here, which they're going to take back up to the court for the ceremony, for the reception this afternoon and this evening. And then they're coming back tomorrow for the church service. Isn't that nice? Right, let's get going. I've got another 65 wreaths to make. On we go.